So I want you to know that I appreciate your comment and I'm not offended by it at all. It's actually a doorway for me to have this conversation because it's going to be the last time I ever have this conversation in general. But first, before I get into the visuals, I want you to understand this. We are sick. And the reason we are sick is because there is a conditioning that says that we must see ourselves from the perspective that white people have of us and the perspective that other Black people have of us. This is what I have been fighting tooth and nail against because I'm so adamant about the fact that Black people do not need to be having a perspective about themselves that comes from what white people think of them, nor should they have a perspective about themselves that comes from what Black people think of them. The only perspective that matters to any Black person should be the perspective that God has of them, and this is what I fight tooth and nail to put out there. But I'm no longer fighting any longer. I've rested it. I feel like I've done the due diligence. I've wrote the book. I've done everything to lay this thing out, and this video right here with these visuals is going to be the last thing I ever do. After that, the way I see it, people love their demons, and I'm not going to fight to get people out of the clutches of demons that they actually love. See, if I was delivering people from things they were unaware of, that's different. But when people love the demons that are destroying them, you can't fight them. You have to leave them where they're at. So let's go. Black people simply do not have the time to be pawns in other people's games, okay? So you need the facts. You need it to be straightforward. What are you looking at? What's the situation here, okay? The reality is that the Census Bureau divides America into 4 regions. Now, if you go into each one of those regions and you pull out the top 3 states with the largest Black population, in the South, you're going to get Texas, Georgia, and Florida. In the Northeast, you're going to get New York, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. In the Midwest, you're going to get Ohio, Illinois, and Michigan. And in the West, you're going to get California, Arizona, and Washington. Each one of these regions now all have the highest Black population according to these states. So if you go through every single one and you go through the top listed communities, I'll post it here. This is the mix up of the demographics. It's all over the place. So when you investigate these communities that are in 4 different regions, 12 different states, all have the highest Black population, all of these communities have the same trifecta: low crime rates, low poverty rates, quality schools, yet they're mixed, they're Black, they're Asian, Hispanic, white, foreign population, not a foreign population, Democratic, Republican. So all of these things that you're trying to put in our head that are the most important things, they are not. So what is? Because we need to zoom out of all the BS and zoom into the reality of what it is. If it's not about being a Democrat, if it's not about being a foreigner, if it's not about your race, if it's not about the size of the population, what is it? Well, this is where success leaves clues, because all we have to do is now put it all together and look at what the pattern is. So what is the pattern? So I'm going to put it right here for you. Each one of these states, the percentage of the people that live within those communities that are married is 60% or more. The percentage of these people that live in those communities that have a bachelor's degree or higher is 60% or more. The average person that lives in these communities, 90% or more, has a white collar position. Okay, this is not to offend anyone. This is just the facts of the matter. The median household income is $150,000 or more. The median home value, it's $734,000. But if you minus out California, New Jersey, and Washington, where the home values are over $1 million, you're looking at about $500,000, $550,000 being the average home value in these places. So the reality is this, is that there is a system. What is the system? It's who you marry. It is what kind of education that you get, or what kind of degree that you get, what kind of career do you take on, and what kind of income does it pays you. That is literally the American system. Documentation beats conversation. It doesn't matter what people are saying. The documentation proves it. So now I'll put this for you right here. Let's look at the marriage population then now, since marriage is so important. What community has the highest marriage rates and is sustaining it pretty much? It's going to be the Asian community. What community has the lowest marriage rates and is continuing to get higher and higher in terms of the amount of people that are not married? It's the Black community. Okay, no coincidence. Now let's move forward. Well, when you look at education, what community has the highest amount of bachelor's degrees or higher? It's the Asian community. What community has the lowest amount of bachelor's degrees or higher? It's the Hispanic community. But this is what's so interesting. The amount of the population that's 25 or older, only 18.8% have a bachelor's degree or higher. The Black community, yet on the other hand, 26% has a bachelor's degree or higher. So why are Hispanic people out earning Black people? Because guess who has the majority amount of marriages? Hispanic people. So now when you look at the household income, when you see that Asian people are making over $100,000 on average, the second highest earners are white Americans. They're making about $80,000 plus on average. Third being the Hispanic community, making about $62,000 on average. And then the lowest being the Black community, making about $50,000 on average. It is no coincidence that there's a straight line correlation between the amount of marriages in the community and the amount of advanced degrees in the community, that this has a direct connection to the performance of the community and the ability to earn enough income to generate wealth. So what we're dealing here as a whole is, even though there's a standard that clearly shows that marriages and advanced degrees has everything to do with the prosperity in America, even though we have bulletproof evidence of this, in our minds, we're still saying, I don't have to be married and I don't have to have that degree. It's possible. Everybody wants to be the exception to the rule. And one thing we need to realize in life is that everybody doesn't have the same grace. Someone could be a college dropout or a high school dropout, a single parent at the age of 14, and yet they go on to be a multimillionaire. They were graced for that. That doesn't mean that you look at that and say, okay, that's now the new standard. No, there is a working standard. There's a formula that actually works. You don't have to make it hard for yourself if you don't have to. Now, because we're so behind the 8 ball or behind the curve, like you said, we're now transitioning into a place in society where they're moving into AI, which means that there are going to be even more educated people that are in these fields that have to do with these things, and they're getting rid of certain positions and jobs, many of them because of AI. And now the question is, okay, what's next? Where do you need to position yourself? What kind of degree do you need to be getting next so that you can be ahead of the 8 ball? So the reality is we're wasting time. You ever see how poverty destroys people? Why put your child in a position where they have to swim upstream in order to get the bare minimum? The Census Bureau lays it out for you. They show you how poverty is distributed. Look at this. They put everything right at our fingertips, but we refuse to follow order. It's like culturally, there's such a war against order. And then now we have to deal with another generation of people that are in lack, that are in poverty, that are in struggle, and all of these different things. And the worst part about it is the majority of adults are never going to admit it's because they didn't get married. Majority of adults are not going to admit that it's because they didn't get a particular degree. Most adults are not going to admit it's because they didn't move and place themselves in a better environment. You know who they're going to blame? The white man. So another black child is going to be born into this environment, into this culture, and they're going to think that white people are holding them down, and not the fact that they could just simply just get a degree, get an advanced degree, and move out of these principal cities and these places and put themselves and their future generations in a better position. Nope, they're going to think that the reason this is happening is because of white people. And listen, society is not going to help as well, because guess what's going to happen? They're going to watch TV, you're going to get on the news, and it's going to be something crazy that happens with black people. They're going to see the injustice and the inequality in the way that things are presented, and it's going to help reinforce this idea that they are a victim and people are attacking them. And then people are going to come on TV and say, man, these crappy behind black people, look at them. They're out here. They're living this way. They're doing these things. And this is the culture in a society that these black children who are not being properly set up for success, this is what they're going to have to survive. So yes, it is the Black Child's Guide to Surviving America, because y'all have created a war zone mentally, emotionally, and spiritually for these children. Not only do they have to survive the fact that they are being born into communities, into households, into cultures that simply do not have the fundamentals. They do not have the resources. They're the ones that's going to have to face the consequences. They're going to have the pressure of this life on them. And the fact that now we're moving into a generation of AI, they need instruction on what to do. You know, before it was be a nurse, be an engineer, be a lawyer, be a doctor. Okay, well, what's the next degrees that they actually need to be getting that are going to keep in trend and going to make sure that they are actually valuable in the marketplace, especially when it comes to what AI is doing? Like, these are the conversations that we need to be having about looking at the future and seeing what we need to be pushing our children in terms of the direction of doing to make sure that they're properly equipped. But no, people rather talk about 50-50. Just redundancy. It's a spell. I don't care what anyone says. This is sorcery, because there's no way people can be stuck in this level of a cycle mentally. It's a sorcery. The things that they need to do are so simple, but the minds that have the influence over them, the tongues that have the power over them, my God, Lord have mercy. They make the simple the most difficult thing to do. They make getting married feel like you're climbing Mount Everest. They make getting a degree feel like you are building a rocket ship to go to the moon. They make the simple the most complicated things. So now life that could be so much simpler is so complicated. So the book is to make sure not only you break that sorcery, but you're aware of how people use their mouths and the system around you that's trying to put this sorcery into the brains of your children. So you can see it, you can rebuke it, and you can teach them how to rebuke it. My children know how to rebuke sorcery. You're not going to be speaking that nonsense in their ear. they can pick it up. So if we're not having a conversation, a serious conversation about education and about marriages and creating a culture that prioritizes this and builds this, everybody's wasting their time. I've added my value. I've prayed over the situation. I've spoken over the situation. I've done everything that I can. But one thing I'm not going to do, I know how not to fight a losing battle. I have no further value to add. None whatsoever. The only value I can add is what I heard a long time ago. The best way to help poor people is to not be one yourself. That's the only value I have to add. Anyways, guys, so it's official. I'm done, Lord. I'm done. God bless you guys. Wish you the best.